Welcome to Treacherous Trap Tuesday. This is DMG on the 7D System channel, and in this one, the very first trap, we're going to talk about an oldie but a goodie. Yep, a pit trap. So if you like these videos, consider supporting me on Patreon. Click the like button, and of course subscribe. And if you want to get notification, click the bell. Ding, ding. So a pit trap. So we're going to go through all the different little features that you can add into this as a basic trap. And you can basically throw this into any sort of dungeon or castle or structure of some kind. And you could probably modify it for in the wilderness as well. But I'm going to stick to the dungeony, castle-y type layouts. The first component would be obfuscation. So how are you going to obfuscate a pit trap? Now, the pit trap is essentially a pit that the person will fall into. So we want to disguise the fact that it's a pit so that they don't go, ooh, a pit, and don't fall into it. Obviously, the first thing one would think is, okay, we need to cover it. Of course, the covering then needs to be something that they need to be able to fall through. The way I consider a pit trap is the covering, if it breaks, you've now just got a hole in the floor and you're not going to trap anyone else. So we need to kind of think ahead, and that's, you know, the adaptation and the reset component of a trap. This is where you need to kind of think of that. How is this trap going to be reused? How cunning can you be? So I'm thinking of a lever system. So it just fling goes like that. So someone walks along and hits the too much weight. That is what I'm thinking of. That's one way to obscure or obfuscate the actual fact that there's a big hole in the ground that someone's going to fall into. So we'll move then on to the lure. How do you get a person to walk over this thing in order to fall down into the trap? I would then think of what can you put further down the corridor that's going to make, ooh, what's that? Things you could have a basic wooden door-shaped object that's just leant up against the wall to make it look like it's a fancy door. So it could have details painted on it, so from a distance it looks like a really fancy ornate golden door or something, but from close up it's clearly just a thing stuck up against the wall. But that would entice the people to go into that direction. Ooh, you see a golden door in up ahead. What are you going to do? You're going to... Maybe you could do a chest, again, just a board. The goblins have cut out a board and painted on roughly a chest. And this is where your difficulty can come in. Is, you know, the level of difficulty of the trap is like, you know, how cunning is the lure? How decent is the mechanism that they're standing on? Is the mechanism made of wood on a stone floor? That's an easy trap to discover. Is it actually flagstones on top of some sort of metal mechanism so that it actually feels like the actual ground that they're walking on? There will be a higher difficulty level. So these are the kind of things you need to start thinking about in this pit trap. What are the elements you're going to put in? If these are level 1 characters, now make it something that's made by goblins. So the flagstones are wood. So they're walking along, and you do a perception check, and you say, you know, the floor starts to sound like a tavern floor rather than walking on flagstones. You know, so, what's that? You know, so they stop, and so you realize the floor is made of wooden flagstone shapes that have been painted grey. So again, they go, okay, all right, so they move on, and the trap then activates and they fall down. You know, you're making the trap more interesting, but again, it's level 1 characters. You know, you expect them to do, you know, silly things. Obviously, a more advanced one, that's when you can have actual flagstones that are, you know, you wouldn't be able to tell unless you're standing on the thing that it's about to drop and you are going to fall 70, 80, 90, 100 feet. The depth should be dependent on the sort of level that you're at. If this is going to be a high impact, deadly trap, then you're going to have a much longer drop with spikes and things at the bottom. If it's going to be a low level 1 trap, it's just going to, they're going to drop 20, 30 feet and it's going to be low damage, so you give them a hand at climbing out. It's made by goblins. Goblins don't know anything about architecture, and they can dig a hole, and that's about as much as they can do. The trigger in this case is purely the weight on the end, so they've walked too far and it just drops because it can't hold that much weight. Again, here you can do checks in terms of grabbing onto the edge before they drop down, being able to jump off in time. There's a variety of different ways they can get out of this. They wouldn't be able to find the trigger if they were tapping with a pole, because they're not applying enough pressure, and it would cover the whole width of the passageway. So they wouldn't be able to find it. So if they're, I'm just going to look for trap triggers with a 10-foot pole, they're not going to find it. Unless it's one of the low-level ones with the wood, and then it's a dunk dunk. It sounds like you're tapping on the lid of a coffin. Again, we're creating a lot of variety in a very simple trap. Containment is a very easy thing because you're now down at the bottom of the hole. So that is how the hero is being contained in the trap. Of course, because it's a levered system, once they've fallen down, it closes back up again. So not only have they fallen down and broken their legs and they've got to try and climb back up, but they have to try and get this thing open. So hopefully there's someone at the top. If the whole party has moved on here and they all fall down, now we've got big problems. Now they've got to try and figure out a way to pull that down and climb out, which again, creates a nice, interesting problem for them to solve. The effect of the trap is obviously the fall damage. If you want, you can get a little bit more deadly with spikes or spears or something like that. Or you can place a monster or monsters at the bottom. So this brings me to disposal, where you could think about having a carrion crawler at the bottom, or a rust monster, or a swarm of rats or snakes. Do an Indiana Jones snake type thing. That the person who falls down is going to have a battle with this monster or swarm or something to that effect. And then the people up now have to shoot it. They've got to try and hold the door open. You've again created a very interesting scenario with a very simple trap. That brings us to adaptation. If you want, you can change the dynamics of the trap. That's where you put spikes at the bottom, or every third one it resets it. As they're climbing up the walls are extremely slippery, or once it's been activated, it pours water down the edges as well, so that the walls become slick, or there's slime or something like that. That starts to occur, and the trap adapts itself. So the next person who comes through, it's more difficult for them. So the person at the bottom, the first one to land, activates the spikes. So they're still alive, but now there's spikes. So the second person to fall down is going to land on spikes. It's going to have way more damage. So that's adaptation. And then, of course, you've got reset. So reset, simple. In this one, it's just the door flipping back up. So that's how the trap resets. And that is Treacherous Trap Tuesday. So if you have any cunning ideas for this pit trap, shove them in the comments section below. Have a great argument with everyone there, and I will see you next Tuesday.